Hey everyone, this is Dr. Russ Jones.
And Brad Kennan.
We are wide open.
So how you doing today, Russ?
I'm doing good. How are you, my friend?
I'm excellent. I'm
Good.
here.
Good. I'm glad you're here. Everybody should know we are working through our issues to get these things just right. And
it may take some time.
Yeah, Brad's good at this stuff. Russ is not so good at this stuff. But Brad is patient, so
you're better than most, so it doesn't matter.
You know, I like technology, and especially like technology in the woods, but you know, it's fun. Hey, I was thinking about the other day we did that. The people haven't seen it yet. The podcast is coming up with Ronnie Powell, which is kind of the person that was the expert on habituation, Bigfoot experts with people that are having Bigfoot living on their property that tells them what to do and that type of thing. But she was making me think about how the Bigfoot would stay so still that they wouldn't move for a long time. It made me, I don't know if you remember this. You remember Tom Powell, the medical doctor?
Absolutely.
Or not Tom Powell, but Tom Bruns, the medical doctor.
Tom. Yeah,
okay,
Tom.
From Tennessee. But one time I was in the woods with him and he was talking about how he saw this bright thing. He was using a thermal. And so, you know, you're in the woods, you can't see anything. It's really black.
Where was he at?
I think he was at Salt Fork State Park in Ohio.
Do you know who he was with?
Yeah. He was with Brody or something.
He was with Brody. He was with my son. Okay. That's the story I was going to bring up too. So go ahead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Brody is like the good luck charm. If Brody goes in the woods, a Bigfoot is coming.
Yeah,
it's something genetic.
Yeah, obviously.
But Tom was, you know, I remember he was telling me that he was watching this bright object, and he thought, you know, maybe it was kind of a statue that was in the woods because we were in a park.
No, it was is what they were. They were down. There was a graveyard, and they'd walked up this road up to a graveyard, and they had the thermal looking at the graveyard, and they thought that maybe the sun had heated up a monument. So the monument was heated up, like, you know, just like an old, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, like a rock, or in the woods will light up at night.
Yeah, or even like, you know, somebody has an angel, you know, sculpted for the top of a tombstone.
Yeah, it holds the heat during the day, and for a few hours, it's, you know, warmer than the environment around it. And so on a thermal camera, thermal imager, it looks like, you know, something.
Correct. Absolutely.
And, you know, I know Tom had told me, he's like, man, I looked at this so long that I just thought it was nothing.
Right.
And all at once, boom. And I'm going to say it was like maybe almost 30 minutes.
No, it was about, they think maybe 5 to 7, because him and Brody Brody were just passing the camera back and forth.
Okay.
Watching it. Just kept watching, and it just would not move, and they just kept watching it.
Wow.
So, I mean, but you got to understand that when you're in the woods and you're watching something, 5, 7, 10 minutes, I mean, that seems like eternity, you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, maybe his time frame said, oh, it felt like 30 minutes, but
yeah,
I thought Brody told me it was like that, you know, 5 to 7 to 10, maybe 10 minutes.
You know, it seems like they hold still until somebody sees them.
Correct. So I remember, well, keep going on with your story. So what did he tell you?
Well, he just told me, you know, he was shocked because he just thought that it was way too long, that something was holding perfectly still.
Correct.
And, you know, you hear stories about that they'll squat down and they'll look like a stump, or, you know, they resemble it, or they're behind a tree or whatever it happens to be. And I think that our life, how we live it, is so much shorter than and quicker than, you know, in the woods. There's not an urgency. You know, who's to say? I don't know how Bigfoot thinks.
Right. So I remember,
clearly,
obviously we don't know how they think.
Clearly.
But I remember Brody told me, he said literally all of a sudden it just turned to its right, went on all fours, and darted off on all fours. It was gone.
Yeah. You know, the rule, like you said last time, is, and everybody talks about this, when you see a Bigfoot, never take your eyes off the Bigfoot. Something, a lot of times another one will try to distract you. You're hearing noise, time goes on. And for an instant, when you look away and you go back, it'll be gone. And you hear that time and time again.
Well, I had one, there was a guy lived maybe 20 minutes south of Columbus, and he went to this guy's house, and he was actually trapping muskrat, and they called the guy, nicknamed him Bigfoot, and at the work he worked at. And
wait, so the witness was Bigfoot?
No, the guy's house that he went to.
Oh, the guy's house he went to was Bigfoot.
And they always thought they called him Bigfoot because of he had big feet. Well, turns out that's not the case. So the guy went there trapping muskrats at a pond, and the reason they called him Bigfoot because the guy talked about Bigfoot and said, hey, he had a Bigfoot by his property. So you know where Slate Run Metro Park is, right? South Columbus. It actually is property backed up to Slate Run.
Wow.
So the guy was trapping muskrat. Wife was with him. Wife says, hey, what's that? The guy kind of is down by the pond, gets up out of the bank of the pond, looks up, and he said, this thing's walking away from him. And he said, it's black. He said, he described it as this 4x8 sheet of plywood, just massively walking. And he said he went after it. So there was a tree line, and in the tree line was a path that a tractor went through to another field. So he goes through the tree line. It goes through that opening. So the guy goes running through the opening, chasing it. He gets through the opening and he runs into the middle of a cattle. There's like 8 cows standing there. No Bigfoot. When he came out, the cattle were startled.
Wow.
But that somehow that Bigfoot disappeared. That Squatch disappeared in a width of woods about 20 to 30 feet wide. The only thing I can think of, getting to my point, is that we have a tendency to look up here. We're looking at 6 foot, 5 foot, 4 foot. We're looking up tall. This thing made a right or left into the woods, and it got on the ground, and it didn't move. And if it doesn't move, we tend not to notice it.
Isn't it weird how sometimes you'll hear like of cows running or cows being in a portion of the land that, you know, they're all grouped together, that they're never not. And then there's occasions you'll hear where cows or horses, they don't react at all to it.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. At nighttime, you hear a lot of times, you know, people that have them around their property. Hey, my horse was making a lot of noise. I went out and checked on it, and, you know, there was something I saw going up over the hill.
Right.
So who knows? He said this was probably at 6, 7 o'clock at night. And it was a pretty interesting, but I always thought about that because I said, how can that thing disappear in 30 feet of woods? Well, if it gets on the ground, we tend not to look up, or we tend not to look on the ground. We always look up. And we're just not paying attention. So file that away. But I tell you what, who we could ask is our next guest. I mean, he's had some encounters, and maybe he's got some idea about this. So you want to introduce him?
Sure. You want to bring Frank on board?
I'm going to bring Frank on board.
Hey, Frank, how are you?
All right. How are you?
We're doing good. We can hear you well. You look good on there. And
so are you an ex-Navy guy, or you have kids in the Navy?
Yes, sir. No, I was in the service.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. Thanks for your service.
More than welcome. If I could have stayed in, I'd have stayed in. 5 years.
Back when were you in? I don't want to age you though. If you don't want to answer, that's okay.
Now, not long out of high school, I went in. I was on the USS Lexington.
Oh, okay.
Now, Frank, you live in Pennsylvania right now. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, one of the things that Brad and I are trying to do is a lot of times with the podcast, you know, you have the same type of people, you hear the same stories over and over again. Like Brad doesn't even want to talk about whenever I made in a Bigfoot, because Brad could tell it. And if someone didn't know what I looked like, Brad could do it. But, you know, you are someone that this story has legitimately never been told for 40 or 50 years here. And
it was 74 to 79.
74 to 79. So, you know what I mean? And you didn't tell anybody in your past that about this story.
I tried to, but nobody believes you.
Yeah.
You know, but when it does happen to you, you don't forget it.
Right. Right. I mean, so, you know, it's so exciting to get a chance to, you know, to hear it like this. And, you know, and I hear time and time from witnesses that once you have an experience like this, that you think about it commonly over the years, like for no apparent reason, it's just on your mind, or you think about that experience. Has that been the way it is for you as well?
Yeah, yeah. Just wondering if it's ever still there. And like I said, recently I had gone back. I had borrowed a friend of mine's trailer camper and went out and back out and, heard some things, but, just wondering if it was still there.
All right.
Yeah. So you had sent a report to our friend Cliff Barrickman. Cliff
Yes, sir.
reached out to me, and of course, it happened in West Virginia. And so I called you, and I talked for a long time on the phone, exchanged some messages and whatnot. And then after that, you got curious about it, and I know you went back and, and you've talked about doing that. But how you want to do this, Brad? Do you want him to?
I say
start in the story.
I say start at the beginning. I mean, that's the best spot, right?
Start at the beginning.
A bunch of us used to go out camping, and somebody, wanted to go to that park, so we went to the park.
So how old were you at this time?
I don't know.
I think 17 is
20,
what you had told
17,
me.
18.
It was like
like
17
that.
to 22 or.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
it was
fine.
young.
I'm just trying to think. Were you 8 years old or?
Oh,
talking?
no, just out of high school.
So you're out of high school. So you're an adult. I mean, you're not. You've been around a little bit, at least at some, right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they went out and we just found a place to stay, and like I told Russ, I said, when you're with people for a little while, you just want to get off by yourself.
How did you guys choose this place in West Virginia that you were going to? Because you weren't from there.
No, a friend of ours. We used to have horses, and he used to go out there horseback riding, and he always thought it was a nice place. And he said, "Oh, let's go there." So we're like, "Oh, drive all the way there?" And he's like, "You won't regret it." And
How far was it for you?
What's it, like 7 hours?
Okay, 7. And of course,
wow.
the people that are listening don't know that we're talking about the New River Gorge in West Virginia, which is the United States' newest national park. So that's where this happened.
Right. We were right off of Route 7, Meadow Creek.
Okay.
So, and, just wanted to get off by yourself for a little while. I go over and I'm sitting. I found myself a rock to sit on, and I was eating, and I just, it just walked up on me.
Now, how far were you from the camp where you were all staying?
About 20 yards, 30 yards.
Okay. So
just wanted to get away by myself for a little bit. I didn't want to go too far.
All right.
Because it started getting late.
All right. So is this the first night you were there?
Yes.
So the first night you set up your camp, everybody does all their stuff, and you just say, "You know what, guys, I'm going over here."
Yeah,
and you walk 20 yards up the creek.
We had been there all day. We had gotten there early, and like I said, you just to the point you want to be by yourself, just relax a little bit.
Sure, absolutely.
And went over and I sat down, and and like you hear things in the woods, and you always think, it's a deer, oh, it's this, and and the thing just kind of walked right out in front of me.
Now, were you sitting on a rock? Were you sitting on a
Right.
path?
I was sitting there. It's a rock right by the creek.
Okay. So a big rock.
Right. I was maybe 6-7 feet off the base of the creek.
Okay.
And it just walked around the bush right in front. I think we startled each other, really.
Okay.
And we just stood there looking at each other, and I'm like, "Oh, come on, this ain't real. This has to be somebody playing a joke, But then after looking at it, I'm like, no, this don't look like a person,
How far was it from you when you first saw it?
About maybe 5 feet, 6 feet.
So there was a little turn or something right there, and then boom, it just
saw
you at the same time.
There was like a bush sticking out, and it just walked. It was walking along the creek is what it was doing, and I was above it. And like I said, I think we just startled each other.
Wow.
So
okay, so you're 5 or 6 feet from this thing.
Yeah.
What color was it?
It was like a reddish brown, almost black.
Okay.
But it was small. It was only about 4.5 feet tall.
Now, was it bipedal? So obviously walking on two legs, not
right.
Right.
That's what made me think it was a person playing a joke.
Okay.
But then after looking at it for a while, I'm like, no, this ain't a person.
So,
but then you start thinking, you get to that point. What do I do? Do I run away? What do I do?
Right.
but it didn't seem to be harmful. Like it wasn't going to do anything.
So when you say a while, is that, 30 seconds, 2 minutes?
Was when we first saw each other,
Yeah.
it was, like, I don't know, like 20 seconds. Like we're looking at each other
Okay.
for a second. And, and I was like I said, you start thinking, what do I do? Do I get up and run like hell or, but then the thing is, like you hear the stories about them, like,
Mhm.
well, if I run, does this thing chase me down?
Like a
You
bear
don't,
might.
yeah, you don't know. So I just like sat still, and it didn't really try to do a whole lot. Just kind of like same thing as I was, just wondering what I was doing there or what you were doing there.
So this encounter, how long did it last from the time that you saw it to the time, I assume it turned around and walked the other direction. I don't think it's going to continue down the path because that's where your camp would be, right?
Right. That's what I was wondering. Even Russ thought when I first spoke to Russ, he was wondering, and also I, was it going down to see what was going on at the camp, because
Right.
we had food out and all. But
Right.
the thing was, and like I was like, oh, I start talking to it, and I'm like, and it like I said, it wasn't like trying to be aggressive or anything like that. But what I noticed is it kept looking back up the creek,
Okay.
and I looked up the creek. I got moved myself around, looked up, and back up in the woods there. You knew something was there. Couldn't really see what it was, but it kept looking back, like it was trying to get like a little
Permission?
kid, like like a little kid would look back at its mother or father. Hey, is it okay for me to be here?
Okay.
But that was the other thing. Like I'm like, okay, now if this thing feels like it's threatened, does it call in the others? Now how big's the other one going to be? I'm not going to argue with any of these things.
Right.
So, but then it just kind of walked off, and I'm like, okay. And when I went back to camp, everybody just thought, everybody's like looking at me like, what's your problem? And I'm like, well, you're not going to, and they're like, yeah, you're nuts. You're crazy, And
This
then
was daytime, right?
it was about 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. It was dinner time.
Okay.
So
It's in the
was this,
summer,
I
so
mean,
it's bright.
but it's it's light enough, obviously if
Yeah.
you're not in the wintertime, getting
Yeah.
dark at 4 o'clock, but it's bright enough. So when you say it walked off, did it continue in the same direction or just turn around and go back the
No,
other way?
it turned and went back in the direction towards the falls. That's where apparently the other one was.
Okay.
And like I was like, okay, I'm just going to walk away. I'm not going to try to approach it. I'm not going to be like a lot of people. Oh, let me go see what it's doing. No, not me. Even at 4.5 foot, I think I might have a problem with it.
Sure. So how long did the whole interaction last?
I don't know, 15, 20 minutes maybe.
Oh, really? So it hung out and
Yeah, it was
you
more
stood and watched
like I
each
said,
other?
right. I think we both had the same idea of what do we do now?
Okay. So you got to see this thing for 15 or 20 minutes, which is more than probably 99.9% of the people that go in the woods looking for these things ever would have in their lifetime. What can you tell us about it? Was a lot of people describe, they have a human type face that's dark with a wide nose, black embedded nails, things, what can you tell us that we don't know?
Well, it had like a human face,
Okay.
a wide nose, but the flattened wide nose.
Okay.
The hands, I noticed the hands. The hands were more like a gorilla.
Okay. Did they have fur on them?
Towards the back of like the knuckles, yeah, but like the fingers and the palm and all that, like it was like a gorilla's hand, like a person's hand. Fingernails like a person, not claws.
Okay.
Did you notice with the nail beds, were they a certain color?
No, they were all dark, all
dark. Okay.
And like like talking to it, I'm trying to, like they always say, try to calm things down. Like I kept saying it. I know you're not a boy. I know you're a little girl. because she obviously had a chest.
Okay.
And I'm looking, and and like I said, I was more, more nervous and more scared of what would happen if I, make this thing mad, or if I make a move that this thing might think I'm going to attack it. I don't want to do that, And
did you notice its ears by any chance?
no, I didn't. No, the
Okay.
hair was covering the ears. Had hair up to like the top of the forehead.
Okay.
And the top of the head, the hair was like pushed up like to a pointed area.
Okay.
I think Russ said it was a cone shaped head or something.
Yeah.
But it was more like that. It wasn't round like a human being's head.
Okay. You did a couple sketches for us. Do you want me to bring those up? Is that, appropriate at this time, or do you want to continue on with the story and we can get to them a little later?
You can bring them up if you like.
Okay. Because now that I think about it, you do the ones you did. I do see that it kind of had that sagittal crest, that that coned head.
The one on the right was her being young.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
She was, like you could see it. You could see how young it was just by looking at the face and all that.
Okay.
The one on the left is probably around the last time we saw her.
Okay.
Let me ask once again, just so I'm making sure I remember this correctly. The face was black, is that right?
Yes.
Or gray, black? Okay. And there was no hair on the face?
No.
Okay.
What about, was there any smell? Did you notice? A lot of people say that, hey, I something was smelled, or we heard, we smelled something. Did you notice anything?
Yes, I told Russ when I had spoken to him, it was more like a dog, like a wet, dirty dog.
Okay.
It wasn't like an overabundance, like a dog that's been out in the rain's been old, a street dog, and you get that odor to it. It wasn't like an overabundance, like some people say, they smell like a dead animal. Well, I didn't smell that. I smelled her like being old and moldy, I would say.
Gotcha. All right. So you had this experience. It lasted, what you said, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that the first time or?
Yes.
Okay. The first time was that length of time. Okay.
So I'm sure you probably just want to get back to camp.
Yeah. When she walked away, I figured I'm going to walk away because I didn't know what else was in the area.
Yeah. I mean, how do you process that? I mean, you go camp with your friends and then, hey, there's a Bigfoot or two.
Yeah, like walking back, you're saying to yourself, did I really see this?
Right.
Yeah.
Am I, did I imagine this? And like I said, when you tell somebody, they look at you like, yeah, okay. You saw this, you saw that. No. At that close range, I think I would know a bear if I saw a bear. And I don't think I would have stuck around.
Right. All right.
So as I remember, you were, every time that you went, it was for 3 or 4 days.
Right.
And you went over a period of 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And each time that you went, it was a little bit later in the year because, it starts and you're out of high school, but then everybody starts getting jobs. And so it's a little bit late because you're juggling work schedules and whatnot. Is that right?
Yeah, we usually tried to go around the same time, July, August, and September. Don't mind too hot weather, but don't want to be camping in the snow.
Okay.
So 20 minutes, you're back to camp. You tell everybody, they just, well, yeah, sure. They don't believe you, but you know what you saw.
Yep.
Now, did you see it again? So how long were you there the first time? Would it was just like a long weekend or something?
No, we were there for the 4th of July, I think it was. We went the first time.
Okay.
And no, we stayed. It was like a week. It takes us quite a few hours to get there.
Sure.
So we usually waste one day getting there and one day coming back. So we're usually there 3 to 4 days.
Okay. So did you see this any other time during your first visit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When we went, same thing, went back, and that was the time I was sitting eating, and she came, and I tried to offer her a sandwich, and she wouldn't take it.
Okay.
But I always have fruit. I eat a lot of fruit. Offered her an apple, but she wouldn't take it. So I just set it on the rock, and I kind of backed away, and she took the apple.
Okay.
And the next, and it was like, okay, that was fine. She walked off with that. And, you know,
is this always about the same time?
Yeah, it's usually, about dinner time. Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, and my friends, well, we're going to come, you know, we were going to sneak up there and say, but the one time we had talked to somebody, come, you know, stay away and, you know, see if you can see it. And she wouldn't come near. But,
so anytime any of them tried to go,
right, she wouldn't come around when there was too many people.
Okay.
But it got to the point after seeing her, within the years, I would leave her something, or she would leave me something.
Okay.
And
so
at one point, she even bought like walnuts and stuff like that, and berries. She would leave them in camp.
So the first time you went for these 3 or 4 days, how many times? So how many interactions did you have with it? You had at least 2.
3 times.
3 times. Okay.
Yes.
So you left it fruit, apple, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were you sleeping in a tent by yourself, or were you sleeping in a tent with other people?
No, well, we would go to guys and girls, and of course they would stay by themselves. And no, I would stay by myself.
No interaction, you know, something maybe in the night you just couldn't explain, maybe, you know, something hitting your tent, or maybe you heard something walking around.
No,
okay.
We never. Well, you would hear different things, and you know, of course, you would say, "Oh, it's a deer" or whatever.
Sure.
You would hear stuff in the woods, but you would never think of that.
Okay, no, you wouldn't. No, most people don't. Okay, so at this point in time, you've established, you know, in the sales game, you meet and greet, establish rapport. First 2 steps, right? So you had your meet and greet already. Then you establish rapport by leaving an apple, right?
Yeah.
So now you're friends. I would consider you a friend if you're giving me something. So you had three interactions in this 3 or 4 days, and probably by the time you got to the end, you really didn't want to leave.
No, because I wanted to see what else I could get
right
closer, or what was going on. But there was always somebody else, you know, some other thing there.
Sure.
Because she was always checking her surroundings.
Okay.
Which, you know, like I said, she was a young one, and then I just figured, well, I'm not going to push the issue.
Okay. All right.
Let me ask you about the. They left you. What was it again on the? And was it on the rocks that she'd left you berries and walnuts?
Yep, she left. When I would leave her an apple or whatever, she would take it. And a couple of times I would go back to sit and see if I could see her. And I found berries. I found what do you call them? Crab apples. Mm-hmm. And they would be on the rock waiting when I would get there.
Okay, so
they're really
you go
friends
home. You
now.
leave. You had your 3 interactions. You left in an apple. You guys leave. You come back. So we're letting the audience know that this went on from 74 to 79. So it went on for 5 years.
Yes.
You know, that's why you're such a compelling witness, is because most people want to talk about, I saw Bigfoot. It ran across in front of my car. It was late at night, and I swear it was a Bigfoot.
Exactly.
No, this is not that case. That's why it's so compelling to us. So you leave the first time, and I'm sure you went back thinking, oh my gosh, I had this awesome interaction.
I have a Bigfoot friend.
It made me want to go back there. Obviously. You know, I didn't mind the drive after that.
Sure. So the second year, you know, friends call you up and say, hey, we're going back to New River Gorge. We're going back down on route. I don't know, what is it, 742? I don't know which one it was.
It's Meadow Creek?
Meadow
Drive or something like that.
Yeah. Should have wrote it down.
We're off of Route 7.
Okay, you're off of Route 7. And what's the first thing that goes through your mind when they say, hey, we're going back?
Oh, sure.
So what are you thinking?
No doubt about it.
I need a bigger bag of apples. I'm going to take some potatoes. I'm going to take, a camera. I'm going to do all these things.
Never thought of doing that.
Okay.
Because back then, like nobody had, everybody back then, you still had the big camera. So nobody
Right.
had all these phones like they have now.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
So
So you go back the second time, you get there probably, you'd probably leave early in the morning. It's a 7-hour drive. You leave at 5, you're getting at noon, whatever that is, you're getting there
yeah, we
early
would check
afternoon.
in, get some, check in and buy some stuff on the way, and
Sure.
and set up camp and all. Same thing. I would want to go back to the same place.
All right. So you just said, I'm going right there because I know I got somebody possibly.
Yeah, I wanted to see if that it was possible to come back to the same spot.
Okay. So you go back.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you take with you the first time when you went back?
Just to eat apples, and I had a banana.
Okay.
Which, I offered her the banana after she showed up. I whistle a lot. I train all my animals for whistles. I have cats that are trained to whistles.
Okay.
And it came, and I'm like, oh, okay.
So did you just go sit down, and next thing you know?
Yep.
Okay.
And she came right back.
Okay. Awesome.
And, I offered her the banana. I had a couple of bananas, and she kind of just looked at, tried to eat peel and all. And I'm like, no. And I had to show her because nobody knows about bananas, but the apples, she just ate the apples. She loved the apples.
So what was the whistle that you were making? I live within a couple hours here, so I could go up there and imitate.
No, just a whistle. Even when I have cats that live out in my yard. I just whistle for them. Okay. Just a whistle.
Okay.
And it just seemed like that would draw her in. I don't know if she recognized it or recognized me or whatever. But,
okay. So, more interactions. How many? So over this 5-year period, how many interactions did you think you had with this Squatch?
At least 10, easily.
Okay. So
there was times that you went and she wasn't there,
and I didn't see her. No.
Okay.
Or it was like I would see her once out of the 3 days or whatever.
Okay.
It wasn't that we were there every day.
Okay.
But
but the older ones were. You still think that the older ones were still around somewhere?
Yes, until towards the end, I think it was like around 79.
Okay.
That's when I realized how really large they are.
Okay.
When I'm in the same spot and she's eye to eye with me, and then I was like, oh, you're obviously way bigger, and I'm not messing around.
Really?
But as years went on, and she would just stay, and I would talk to her. You talk to her like a little kid, and like everybody always says, oh, I hear him growling, and I hear him. I never heard that.
Okay.
I never heard her growl. And what I told Russ is she would understood or what, and knew I wasn't going to hurt her, but she would make a sound like a dove.
Okay.
That's the only way I could say.
Like a cooing?
Yes. Yeah. That's what made me believe she understood or felt comfortable enough that I wasn't going to hurt her, which I don't even think I could have.
I remember you telling me, and you just alluded to it, that you were a little shocked about like the last time that you went when you saw her, how large that she had gotten.
Yes, she was well over 6 foot.
And of course, she had breasts by then.
Yes. Because every time I seen her, I always told her, I know you're not a boy. I know you're not a boy.
There was just something about her before. I mean, that, maybe she had smaller breasts, or something looked feminine about her appearance.
Yes. She just didn't look aggressive. I would say aggressive, towards me, like a male, like you would think a male would have a big, like the trap muscles and all that. She had them, but not like you would think a male would have. But like I said, you could see her breast.
So, just to me, just talking to you here, Frank, I met you, 30 minutes ago. We started talking on the phone, and we were getting in this call. You have a pretty calm voice. You're not. You just seem like a nice guy. So
Thank you.
That to me, I'm sure if I can pick it up, something that's much more tuned to environment can pick that up also. So maybe that's got something to do with it too.
You mean his demeanor in general? Frank his demeanor seems calm and
correct.
But do other people perceive you that way? Interestingly, Frank,
Yes, it seems like when people have issues, they always seem to turn to me.
Okay, well that's interesting.
I could see that.
When my friends have problems, they always seem to come to me. I don't know if I say the right thing, or maybe it's the way I say it. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So 10, would you say about 10 interactions over 5 years? Is there any interaction that you had that really sticks out in your mind that you kind of remember as say, you know what, there's a reason we were put on this planet. We don't know everything. And, I'm sure that things that have happened between now or then and now, everything from TV shows that you see these and monster movies, and you just think, you know what, it's not the case, because I've had an interaction. I remember this interaction and it's just something that stuck with you. Just anything like that?
Well, like you see the ones like everybody has this, this outlook that they're killers,
Right.
and you see the pictures some people have, oh, they had such big teeth and they have fangs and they have this and it's not.
Okay.
They don't. At least I know the one that I dealt with did not.
So did you notice the teeth? So it doesn't have, no canines, no. Russ is probably more of a
was more like
this,
large human teeth.
Okay.
There was no teeth sticking out like they make the thing, it's dripping blood, and I was afraid it was going to rip me apart, and it has giant claws. No, I didn't see any of that.
Okay.
And I'm like I always think now, who knows what's out there? You never know what's out there until you run into it. And I guess it's like everything else. If you don't bother it, it's not going to bother you.
Right.
Hey, Frank, let me ask you, one of the things that scientists over the years had objections to about the possibility of a Bigfoot was that generally primates do not have, except for humans, won't have hair on their breast. As it got larger and you knew for sure that it was a female and you could see the breasts as it got larger and got over 6 foot tall, did it have hair on the breasts?
Yes, but not as heavy as the rest of the body.
Okay.
Like you could see her nipples and the edges of her breast and all, but she had hair, but I don't know if it was just longer hair that was overshadowing them, but not as heavy as the body.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through this as I remember just now that you've told me and see if it, if there's anything else that we're forgetting. That she had dark nails. She had human-like or gorilla-like hands, that there was hair on the tops. There was a black face that did not have hair. The head was conical. The teeth were human-like.
Large, flat, like our teeth, like flat, like our teeth. There was no like dog teeth or anything.
Okay, what about the eyes? What color were the eyes?
They were just black.
Did you notice any white around the eyes?
No, I didn't. Nope.
They were just all dark.
She would look at you, and you had the feeling that she was not even looking at you; she was looking behind you.
Okay. You said that the feet on the tops of them had hair. The breasts had hair on them, but you could see thinner. It was a thinner hair, and you could actually see the nipples through there. Let's see, the head was conical. What about did you notice, was there any type of brow ridge up here, or there wasn't anything really like that?
No, the hair was back a little bit, not real far, but there was can't say she had real heavy eyebrows, but it was I don't know, if you pushed it down, not heavy like a gorilla.
Yeah. So they were maybe a little deeper set.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know, Russ. This is, obviously I believe you. There's no reason not to. You probably had more interaction with these things. How total time wise, was it an hour over the 5 years? Was it, longer than that? Less than that?
More than that.
Really? Okay. So you were around this thing quite a bit. Wow.
What about from the time that you first met or first saw her to the last time? We know that she got a lot bigger because you were a little shocked at the end how large that she had gotten. And
Yep.
And I remember you telling me that you were at first a little fearful because you're like, oh gosh, she's large. You're in the zoo with the animals. And what else did you notice from the time that she was young over the course of 5 years? How has she changed from being young to old? Was there other changes in her body that you noticed?
I guess you would say more muscular.
Okay. Sometimes people say that they don't really have a neck. Kind of the muscles, the trap muscles come right up to it. Did you notice that? I mean, this is a young female when you first saw it.
Yes, but like I said, not like the males.
Not like you see when you see pictures or whatever,
Right.
where it's
right.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
I don't know, Russ. I'm flabbergasted at this point in time. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to process the whole thing and thinking, man, what would I've done? Would I've sat there and had an interaction with this thing for over an hour, over 5 years and not been scared to death to pull my tent up and leave,
I don't think that most
keep
people would have been
going
able
back.
to do what he did.
I don't think so either. I mean, honestly,
We all
most people
say
would see
it.
this thing. Right. Everybody says they will until they have the opportunity and they don't. So
Probably because of what everybody says about them.
right. You just didn't believe them.
Well, it's like everything else. If you're not aggressive, they're not going to be aggressive.
Right.
So I remember I'd asked you previously if you had believed in Bigfoot. And I think that you had told me that, you were familiar with what it was, but you really didn't have an opinion of it. Am I recalling that correctly?
Yeah, you don't, like you hear of them and you know what goes on, and like everything else, and everybody will say, "Well, I'll believe it when I see it." Well, believe me, when you see it, you believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the thing I thought following up on this was interesting was, the listeners don't know this, or the viewers, but Frank drives big trucks, semis for a living, and he lives in an area where there historically are Bigfoot sightings still, and was driving a lot of time during the night at times where, there was a very good chance that he could have another Bigfoot sighting. He was in a good location. He's always driving at night. He's up elevated so he can see a little clearer. But you said that you've never had another experience or anything like that.
No, not around here.
Wow. Would you ever desire to go back and to do your whistle? Did you do your whistle when you went back?
Yes.
Just after you and I talked just a few weeks ago.
Yes, but it was a different place.
Okay, so could you find the place that you were?
Drove right by it.
But there was somebody there. You just didn't stay in that spot? Or?
Yeah, it doesn't look the same.
Okay. Well, heaven knows that's the truth.
So when you say it doesn't look the same, does that mean somebody built a house there, or it's just?
No, it's more built up. It's not like years ago used to be a train there.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're talking 50 years.
Right. Yeah, and now it's more like a park.
Okay. All right, gotcha.
So when you went this time, you were close. How close would you say that you were to the original spot?
What's it, 15, 20 minutes up that road? Same road. You go out.
You the same creek?
To the other. Yeah, beyond that. But it was, oh God, I can't think of what the name of that one was. It's just an open campsite there that backs up to the woods.
Yeah, and like so many places in West Virginia and Appalachia and, even Ohio, if you're in wooded land, I mean, these things can be anywhere, but they're rare. So it's not like they're everywhere. It's not like, if you hear somebody that's interviewing witnesses or giving podcasts or whatever it happens to be, and they're having Bigfoot interactions all the time. I mean, I think that's reasonable to be suspicious of that. It's just not that that happening that much like that. In fact, Peter Byrne, one of the four horsemen in Bigfootery, used to say, and still does, he just written a book, he's like 90 something years old. He doesn't believe that there's Bigfoot sightings that are legitimate on the East Coast, and he doesn't believe any witness has more than one. But time has changed and everybody has changed, but apparently not Peter.
Well, there's a lot that, a lot of the woods are being taken away. So a lot of they don't have the property anymore, because every place you go now is a mall, or somebody's building a home or whatever. So there isn't woods like they used to be.
It's interesting, and I don't know if I told you this or not, Frank, but I took the Finding Bigfoot TV show. It was about maybe 6 miles downstream from where you were located on the New River. The New River starts in North Carolina and was one of the few rivers that flows north. And it flows north, and it was one of, I think it's the third oldest river in the world. And there's a historical record of Bigfoot sightings, for years and years and years. And the Finding Bigfoot TV show did have action when they were there. They heard some Bigfoot sounds. I'm not sure whether or not, anything happened beyond that. I don't really recall right now. So, you were in a good area that historically looks about the same. We talk about this thing called the Halibut Factor. And of course, the halibut is a fish, they find up around Alaska. And the fishermen always say that if you find a place where the halibut are, that they're always going to be there for generations and generations unless something changes. And in Bigfoot, we say that we have the halibut factor. If the woods are about the same and the area looks about the same, then there's a good chance that something might be there just like it was a long time ago. Of course, it sounds like your direct area that you're in is not exactly like that.
No, because even in the Pocono Mountains now is, which I've delivered to up there. There's a lot of places now that the woods aren't there anymore.
I remember you asking me whether or not I thought the same one could be there, and I was telling you that the greater primates live an average of around 50 years.
Right.
Assuming that something doesn't happen with disease or an accident or whatever it happens to be. So, it would be probably unlikely that same animal, would still be there. But boy, wouldn't it have been interesting if you lived in that area and were able to go back over the years and maybe have an experience.
Yeah, that's what I said. I would like to go back.
Well, Russ is close.
Got any more? Yeah, well, I go there a lot,
Yeah, you're not that far from there, right?
No, I'm not. But, every place is a good place, and it's hard to go everywhere. And I go dozens and dozens of times. I've been literally at a place a day or the week of that there was a Bigfoot sighting, and they're never there when you go there. It's just not how this works. They're just moving on. And
yeah, they don't build up homes there waiting for you.
Yeah. Like you were saying, Frank, I mean, so you went back over a period of 5 years. The first time it was July 4th weekend. The last time you went back, I think it was beginning of October. So, each time having an encounter over a period of 5 years, which would make it seem as though, they would be staying in the same general area through the course of a year. And of course, a lot of us used to believe that they may range over, say, a couple 100 miles in the East Coast, an area, say 4 or 5 times the size of where a bear would, wider out west, where there's more territory, not at the food resources that are concentrated like they are in the East Coast. But, your case, which is, there's not very many cases that people believe where there's over the course of years, multiple encounters that the animals, generally in that same area, you just don't have this happen. So it's such a valuable case, just not even, not only the description. Hey, Brad, how about those pictures again so we can look at those so that everybody can see those?
Yep. Let me see here. There you go.
So how many times you drawn these pictures?
I think I have a couple more.
So I see a date down there. Is that from 1977?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
So you actually had
the
encounter.
I was going to say. Yeah, I think they're dated.
So you had that encounter, and you actually went back, or you took out a piece of paper while it was fresh in your mind, and you did a sketch.
Yep.
Okay. Wow.
All right.
I kind of noticed on that one on the left, you see there's like, kind of a brow ridge there. Sometimes people talk about, of course, the nose being, a covered nose and human-like but flattened. And, the eyes maybe are a little darker and set back in there farther. And definitely looks like a conical head that you've drawn there. Not round like a human one.
Right.
Right.
Wow.
Man, I just, like I said, this is it's mind-boggling, to be honest with you. My short encounters I've had don't even equate to one of yours. So it's pretty amazing story. Absolutely.
It's interesting. You hear from witnesses. I remember there was a blacksmith, I think in the first book, Tracking the Stone Man, that I did. He did a sketch, and he was outside, and there was him and some other guy. They were in high school or something, were playing, and they heard something coming down, and they lived on the side of a mountain. And at the end of their yard, it was just briars and berry patches, and they heard something coming, and they both glanced and looked over there, and here was a Bigfoot striding by, with the arms outstretched, so much like you see him, in a Patterson Gimlin film and whatnot. And, it glanced over and looked at them, and it didn't pause. It just continued on. And I hear that commonly, they don't really pause when they're walking by. They just cruise on by. And that gentleman had told me that, he drew me that picture, or I guess he gave me the picture. I don't know. He drew it for me. And I said, I'll make a copy or whatever. And he said, I'll keep it. I have hundreds of them. He was a blacksmith, and, I guess he just, he said he thinks about it all the time. And you hear that commonly, that witnesses, it's a big deal. How many times in your life do you have something happen that you can't explain, that's outside of the normal? I mean, I can only think of maybe, in my life, a handful of times. You had that happen, Brad, how many times you had something you couldn't explain happen?
Not many.
Yeah. I mean, seeing a Bigfoot would be kind of really
right. I mean, I've seen one run across the road or whatever it was, but I knew what it was, and we've had reports in that area before, so it was kind of, at the time, you don't really, your mind doesn't process it. So I can imagine, Frank here, sees this thing walk around the corner, and his mind's just turning. Okay, it's not a bear, it's not a cat, it's not a elk, it's not, what is this? Yeah. It's not a guy in a suit, it's Bigfoot, you know. So absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. It kind of confirms so many witness, stories that we've had, but a lot of them, those occur for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. That's how long it occurs. You had an hour to look at this thing. An hour.
Over the years.
Over the years.
Yeah.
So,
and let me point out, a lot of times that, with witnesses that, probably 75% of the witnesses I meet, they don't want their name out there. They don't want their face out there. They have nothing to gain by it. Frank, you're a 60-something-year-old truck driver. How old are you now?
64.
64. Okay. You still driving? Still working?
No.
Okay. Now you're retired.
Going on disability.
Okay. So, certainly you have nothing to gain by, telling a Bigfoot story that's 50 years old. It's not like, it's going to supplement your income or make your life easier in any way.
Harder, probably.
Probably so. But, I just want to tell you that, Brad and I really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
And, I know that, it can be easy to talk about. It's really remarkable that you can go back that and be as specific as you are. So I know it must have stood out in your mind, and it's such a remarkable case to get a chance to talk to somebody that's seen one, a number of times. And, you know, and to take such good notes on it. So I really appreciate that. And you know, if anything else happens, I hope that you'll let Brad and I know.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do appreciate it. We're not the greatest interviewers in the world. We're kind of new at this. So
yeah, we're learning our craft.
we're learning,
Hey.
you know, maybe in another year, if we're still doing this, we might have better questions and you know, whatever. But right now, we just appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
No problem. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Frank.
Thanks.
All right, Russ. That
Wow.
was eye opening.
Yeah.
You know, when you first told me about Frank, I was thinking, oh, you know, this guy had maybe a fleeting glimpse over 5 years, you know, maybe once or twice, or, you know, a little bit here and there, but, you know, spend this much time. You know, I was thinking maybe that first interaction was maybe 15, 20 seconds. I saw it, turned around, walked away. You know, then he's going to leave an apple at some point in time. But no, I mean, he had this interaction, you know, 20 minutes right off the rip, you know, his first time out. And honestly, it's a pretty amazing story. And I honestly don't think the man has anything to gain financially. He's, you know, obviously never asks us for money or, you know, hey, where's my cut of the profits off this show? Because, well, there are none, but
that's right.
Unless you know, we got to get more people liking and subscribing, I guess, is what everybody says. And,
hopefully we can get a lot more people like him, you know, that the public hasn't seen, that are credible witnesses that,
right.
you know, I mean, because in the end, the witnesses, you know, they either are lying, they are mistaken,
correct,
or they're hoaxing. You know, there's really only, you know, just two things, right? They're either telling the truth or they're not.
Correct.
And,
well, I mean, some people could be telling the truth, but, you know, they're driving down the road at 60 miles an hour and I saw a Bigfoot. Well, that's, you know, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. It could have been a log for all you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been a stump that I saw, but it, you know, didn't get stand up and walk away. And I'm sure at some point we're going to do an episode where we're going to take all these pieces of video that are out there. I think, you know, I keep seeing them. There's new ones coming out, and there's some people on Instagram that literally post all kinds of new stuff all the time. Some of it is just absolutely laughable. You know, hey, what do you think of this? Funny as people say, what do you think of this? I'm like, well, all you gotta do is Google Amazon and look at Bigfoot suit, and there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even a good representation of a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm sure we'll get there, but Frank struck me as very credible. And he doesn't have anything to gain, I don't believe so.
Well, let's just tell the people that are watching or listening that, you know, if you have a sighting you'd like to tell Brad and I, you can send me an email at thebigfootdoc.com.
So you just go to your website at thebigfootdoc.com.
Yeah,
I'm sure you have a submission. You have a submission form.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Easy as that. Or you can find Brad or I, either one, on Facebook and send us a message. You know, we, on a side note here, we'd really appreciate you following us, liking it. You can go on Untold Radio on YouTube and watch us if you want, or you can go on Apple or the Spotify, the normal places, and find us. Brad, do they have to go under Untold Radio and then look for us under there, or?
You know, I have absolutely no idea. I think under Untold Radio, or simply, you know, go to the search box. Everything's got a little search, and just, you know, search Wide Open Research and we'll pop up. So,
okay.
Or Russ Jones. I mean, but they might have 100 of them to sift through. But,
yes.
So
that's, well, hey, it was fun, man. And it's good seeing you.
Nice seeing you. Well, let me, I guess I'll take us out.
All right. Until next time, my friend. Thanks, everyone.